Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be ranking the tier lists that were made for the most recent tier list episode of Tweek Talks. All four members of the podcast ended up sharing their tier list, and in today's video, I'm going to be disagreeing with them. Now, it's important to establish all of these guys are better at the game than me, but that's not going to stop me from telling you that they are wrong. And I also think that overall, these tier lists are all extremely well done, especially compared to some of the stuff that I've been seeing recently on Twitter. So even though I'm going to be arguing and disagreeing with them through the entire video, they still did a pretty good job. So the first tier list and the one that I disagree the most with is going to be Tweek's tier list. But before I talk about it, I want to play this clip from the podcast because I think Pinkfresh explains the way that Tweek thinks about the game way better than I do.
Okay, so I feel like from what I'm listening to, and you could help explain this, but for me, Chuck and it sounded like we were looking at tournament viability, like if you pick this character's solo main ability. When I listen to you talk about the characters on your tier list, it feels like you are talking about character strength in a match.
Yeah.
Like in a singular match.
So with that context in mind, knowing that Tweek is viewing his tier list entirely from within one game, whereas I'm viewing my tier list for if you want to win a major event, there are a couple characters that you can see why they're in different places, and the biggest one is going to be Sheik. Even with the context that Tweek says, I still don't agree that Sheik should be this high, but I can understand. She is an extremely good character, especially when played properly. She has an amazing disadvantage state. Her neutral is phenomenal, and if she clips you with the right move while playing optimally, she is going to steal your stock. And with my context of how I look at the tier, the Sheik is significantly worse because there's going to be a bigger factor of human error. Yes, Sheik has a very high damage output, and her neutral is incredible, but is it significantly better than some of the characters around her? No, and I would say it is a lot more difficult. She has to perform a lot more reps, but when you're thinking about it of the lens through one game, it's more of a reasonable placement. But even knowing the way that Tweek thinks about the game, a character that I was shocked to see this low was Bayonetta. She has some of the highest damage output in the game, and like Sheik, she can do it off a multitude of her moves. If you are playing this character optimally, you are going to be killing people absurdly early, and like Sheik, sometimes the stocks can get a little bit moldy, but in theory, if you're able to land your kill confirms, you really aren't going to have to worry about that. And I think one of Bayonetta's big problems is going to be if she messes up and Bayo somehow doesn't get you in the air, and you manage to get to the ground before her, she's probably going to take a massive punish because of all the landing lag that she has after her specials if she lands on the stage. I think something that Bayonetta players are going to start doing is try their best to get to the ledge. You're not going to be able to do it in every single scenario, but if you get to the ledge, now you're Bayo on the ledge, and she loves the ledge. She's going to have side B. It's just an extremely difficult character to ledge trap, and if Bayonetta players are able to realize that they're just going to have a character that is very riskless, you could throw out a ton of hitboxes, and the reward is going to be heavily skewed into your favor. So I'm very shocked to see Bayo this low, considering how amazing her damage output and kill confirms are. Another character that is going to be way too low, even if me and Tweek make our tier list a little bit different, would be Yoshi. This character is absurd. He's got incredible damage output, he has amazing killing, and he's very difficult to keep in the disadvantage because his double jump just allows him to disengage 90% of the time. Now, if you get it clipped that 10% of the time, you are kind of screwed, but I'll take 90 to 10%. And another thing that Tweek heavily valued is going to be flexibility and versatility, just the way that characters can approach different scenarios and how many tools they have at their disposal. Yoshi has a lot of different tools at his disposal. He's going to have a command grab. He's going to have a projectile. I'm not going to say it's the best one, but it is still a projectile. And both his tilts and his aerials are amazing for pressuring and setting up into the kill confirm. So I'm really shocked to see Yoshi this low, and I'm wondering his reason for it. Another character that I think is too low would be Snake. I have this character in my definite top 6. I think he is absolutely ridiculous, but it's not like Tweek put him at a bad placement. He's still in the S tier, so I'm not going to spend any more time on it, but I just wanted to mention it. And the final character that I think is too low is Young Link. This character's damage output is very good. His neutral is very difficult to deal with, especially if you're not a quick character or one that lacks a projectile. Then it is an absolute nightmare. He's going to have amazing frame data and a majority of his moves. And an issue with Young Link recently has been that some of his kill confirms could be a little bit inconsistent. And I'm definitely going to give you credit there, but he has a lot of kill confirms, whether it be off of arrow, boomerang, bomb, down tilt, up B, you name it. He just has so many ways where he can secure the stock that a couple of them may not work from time to time, but a majority of the time the stocks aren't going to get too musty because one of your kill confirms is eventually going to lead into that kill. And I'm not saying that he should be substantially higher. I probably have him at the top of this B tier, but definitely better than characters like Jigglypuff or Inkling. The next character that I think is too low is Ryu, and it's another one of those things I can see where Tweek is coming from, especially considering that he values flexibility, and Ryu is a fairly one-note character when you think about it. He's going to be fireballing you a lot in neutral, and when you get close to him, he's going to use his amazing normals to confirm into one of his super strong specials, but that game plan is incredibly solid. I think it's better than every single character in the B tier. I would put him at least at the bottom of the A tier. He just has so many ways where he can steal the stock very early. He has some of the best shield pressure in the entire game, and that fireball projectile is just so strong. And my final two characters are going to be Wii Fit and Lucario. I think they're both a little bit too high. I would put them towards the bottom of the B tier. And I'm not going to lie with you, Lucario is slowly growing on me every single day. The character's got some solid damage output. His kill confirms are really good. His frame data is super good. And if he has aura, his killing is incredible. But that's if he has aura, and that's where the issue lies for me, and it's the exact same thing for Wii Fit as well. If you don't have a way to deal with Soccer Ball to the ledge, it is an absolute nightmare to play against this character, and when she gets deep breathing, she is a race car, and if you get hit by a nair at like 40%, you can kiss that stock goodbye. She hurtbox shifts like crazy, but if she can't get deep breathing, whether it be because you have a really difficult projectile for her to deal with, or because your character can just rush her down, she becomes significantly worse, and those are the big problems for me with Wii Fit and Lucario. Look at Luigi, for example, who's probably around those characters somewhat. He's always going to have access to his up B. He's always going to have grab. The things that are good about Luigi are always good about Luigi. But for Lucario and Wii Fit, throughout the entirety of a tournament, sometimes you're just not going to be able to get access to your gimmicks. You play a character like Incineroar or Kazuya, for example. Lucario is not going to be seeing max aura that often. But again, we have to talk about it. Tweek is not looking at this through the lens of the entire tournament. He's looking at this in just one game, and Lucario in just one game, if he gets max aura once or twice, very scary. Wii Fit gets a couple deep breathings, the characters are very scary, so I can see where Tweek is coming from in all of his character placements, but when we're looking at the game so differently, it's just kind of tough to tell what's too high and what's too low. I should also mention that I think everyone on Tweek Talks put Ken a little bit too low, but I like the narrative that it's pushing, so I'm not really going to talk about it. And our third best tier list is going to be coming from Charles. And like I said at the start of the video, I think all of these tier lists were really well done, but that doesn't mean there's characters that I don't agree with. And like Tweek, I think Charles has Bayonetta way too low. As you all know, I just think so highly of this character. I put her in my top 10, which I know is crazy for a lot of people, but you'll all get there one day, trust me. So I'm not going to spend more time talking about it, but just should be noted. I should also mention that a character I initially thought was too high is Luigi, and everyone on the Tweek Talks couch rated Luigi fairly high, but to be honest, with the recent success that Luigi, Rarecruit, and honestly all the Luigi players in the world have been having, but especially those guys, they've just been doing some ungodly stuff. I can kind of see where they're coming from. Now, I still don't think he should be higher than characters like Toon Link, definitely not higher than characters like Yoshi and Ryu, but I think his general placement on the tier list is actually pretty good. But there are some characters that I think are definitely in the wrong spots, and the first one is going to be Ness. He is so much lower than he should be, and I'm very curious to see why Charles would put Ness so low. If I had to guess, it would be probably because his recovery is such a massive blind spot for the character, but on stage, he is an absolute nightmare. All of his aerials are incredible and have a versatility of uses. His tilts are as good, but down tilt is a really annoying tool, and if you get clipped by it, you're going to be taking like 30%, and he's always going to have the threat of grab, which is super scary. You're also going to see him doing PK fires typically when he's on the ground, but the reason that I value Ness so high is going to be his damage output, specifically with the side magnet combos. I think if people start integrating those a little bit more in 2024, like Nessboy12 does, every time I bring up Ness, I bring up Nessboy12, but it's because he's just significantly better than all the Ness players in that specific aspect. If Ness starts doing that to people, I think he's going to rise massively on every single tier list, but definitely on this tier list. A character that I think is way too high would be Inkling. I would move her down to the B tier, somewhere in the middle of that B tier, to be honest. I have a little faith in this character, and there are some good things about her. Her neutral is incredible. She just dashes so low to the ground. She's very quick, and out of dash, she can jab you, and that jab's going to be doing like 20% and adding on a ton of ink. And Inkling with ink, the damage output is fairly high, but that's all I have to say about Inkling. Actually, her edge guarding is also pretty solid, but when it comes to getting the kill from a character that doesn't have a bad recovery, you just don't get the kill. Inkling is, in my opinion, the worst killer in the entirety of Smash Ultimate. She's either going to be killing you from an up throw at very, very specific percents, looking for a raw call out with a smash attack or an up air read, or she's going to be trying to hit you with roller, and if you're getting hit by roller in 2024, unless it's a super hard read, you probably need to learn the Inkling matchup, so I would definitely move her way down. It's not like she's a terrible character. I think you can make her work, and there are a lot of people that are making her work, specifically in Japan, but is she up there with some of these characters? Definitely not. Another character that I think is too low is going to be Ryu, but I already mentioned this in the Tweek part, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. I just think his damage output, killing, and neutral is really strong. Even if it is a little bit one-dimensional, you still got to beat the one trick. Our next character that I think is too high will be Byleth, and I think people have just gotten a lot better against her, specifically with her up-close pressure. It used to be that Nair was an amazing tool that not only comboed into itself, but was also a kill confirm and had a ton of mix-up on shield, and while all those things are still true, people have just understood, okay, if Byleth is nairing my shield, I need to wait for this landing hitbox at all costs, and because of that, you're seeing a lot of the Byleth cheese that she used to get kind of slowly fading away. Now, this character is still a cheese lord. She has down air as a super good X-Factor move. Up B is a really good way to swing the game into your factor and get your opponent off stage, and she's got these massive sword hitboxes. She's not a bad character by any means, but is she as good as characters like Samus, Pokemon Trader, Mii Brawler, Falco? I don't think so. I realize I forgot to say where I put Byleth. I would put her at the bottom of the A tier. I have two more characters that I want to highlight, and it's not because I disagree with them, it's because I agree with them a lot, and I don't think most people would share that opinion. The first one is going to be Sephiroth. I think that character is garbage, and there are some characters in the A tier that I think he's a little bit better than. I think he's better than Marth, I think he's better than Inkling, and I think Ness is better than him, but aside from that, this is like perfect for him on the tier list. This is one of the, if not the best Sephiroth placement I have ever seen, so congrats to Charles for that, and this is the best Corrin placement I have ever seen. Higher than I put her, but I like the narrative, and I think the trend is going to continue this way, because Corrin isn't even optimized yet. She is a character that has so much other stuff that can be discovered because her combos aren't linear. She has a lot of different ways that she can take her combo route, and she's also got a lot of different ways where she can confirm into pin, and that is where Corrin's meta is going to be pushed into 2024. It's going to be, how can I get this pin to hit the sour spot, or the sweet spot rather, so I can seal your stock at 70-60%, because you can confirm into it. You're already starting to see Shattuck and Neo specifically go for pin callouts or pin confirms, and I think as they push that even further, she's going to keep going up on the tier list. And for plug, I just wanted to insert a teeny timeline in this video. Everything that you just saw was recorded pretty much right after the Tweek Talks episode was dropped, and everything you're about to see was recorded this week, or as of the video coming out. So there is going to be a couple characters that we touch on twice, but I want to leave it in because I think the insight on some of those characters has changed, and also, I was right about Corrin. The second best tier list is going to be going to Hazmatt, and I actually had the opportunity to sit down with the man himself and hear his opinions about all the character placements that I disagreed with, as well as just talking about some of the characters that we both agreed on, so I'll play that right now. Wonderful Hazmatt from Tweek. Which, are you talks 3 or 4? I don't remember.
I don't remember either, honestly. I think I'm 3. I'm the last number for sure, and I think Gavin is technically 0. Like, he doesn't get a number because he's just... Yeah. He's Tweek.
Yeah, exactly right.
He's anyway, Tweek 1.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a couple characters I want to talk with you about. Overall, all of you guys kind of cooked on your tier list, but that doesn't mean I agree on everything. And we're going to start at the bottom, and this is the only low tier character I'm going to ask you about, because the rest of the low tiers, I really don't care about the order. But there's always that important debate of who is the worst character in Smash Ultimate, and I think it is by far Ganondorf, but you had it as Little Mac, and I'm curious why.
I do. I just feel like Little Mac, if you take advantage of his weaknesses, are the highest in the game. I don't think there's arguing that. Like, I think he just has the biggest weaknesses. That being said, I mean, the magic that Peanut does with this character, I just think he's brilliant, obviously. But honestly, a couple of the characters you wanted to ask me about today, there's this volatility to them, right? Where Little Mac maybe consistently might place higher than Ganondorf because KO Punch exists, because his offense is insane. If you don't know the matchup, you are going to get cooked like 1,000%. I'd say less people know the Little Mac matchup, actually know it, than they know the Ganon matchup. I think everyone kind of has fought Ganon throughout their careers, or he's a way more common character than Little Mac. So to me, Little Mac, I think the fact that people play like people and not like robots makes him the worst character. I think if people played like robots and just hit him once and went to time him out, it would hurt a lot. But a lot of people are kind of stubborn, especially when they play this game, or people feel that social pressure of, I'm losing to Little Mac, I'm getting cooked, and now I'm feeling it. And Little Mac is a character, and Ganon's this way too, where when you start getting scared or you get afraid of them, they play even better. But I'm saying, like, if you take all of that out of it, and I guess maybe that's not fair to Little Mac, because this tier list isn't for robots, it's for humans playing the game. But what I'm saying is, as a character, like, if I'm sitting here, my friend turns to me and goes, I want to become the best player in the world, who should I play as? The last character I would recommend is Little Mac. Ganon's not too far behind. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're really close. But I'm like, bro, I think Peanut is such a fantastic and brilliant player, and he does so well with this character. And what that means for him is, you know, 65th or 49th, which is so impressive. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to talk down on Peanut at all. Like, if not anything, it's the opposite. Like, I think what he does is genius with this character, but the effort he puts in and the payoff he gets out is just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like the risk reward is like so heavily skewed in literally every other character in the game's favor. And like, imagine if Peanut was playing like even a mid tier. Imagine him on like Dr. Mario. Like, it would be incredible. But I still value Little Mac a little bit higher just because he does have that speed. He's such a good whiff punish character, unlike Ganondorf. And I think I actually super agree with you that people are really bad at the Little Mac matchup, because you don't really have to be good at the Ganondorf matchup. You just kind of have to get out of his way. But with Little Mac, he's just so oppressive, and not having an aerial game is really unfortunate. The reason that I've kind of been valuing Little Mac a little bit more recently is because of the tech chase stuff that he has on the platforms, which I find quite good. KO Punch is good as well, but I don't really care about that, to be honest. My main things are he's such a good whiff punish character, and his tech chasing is actually pretty incredible. But at the end of the day, it's sticks and stones. They both suck, so who really cares?
I was kind of. It's always the only reason we talk about this is because I put him as worse in the game, right? No one's like, hey, why is Plant above Ganon?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, or why is Zelda above Ganon? It's like, well, come on, like, you know what I mean? Or why is me Sword Fighter above Dedede, or whichever order you have them in, right? It's like, it's just interesting to think of conceptually, to me, what it means to be the worst character. Ganon, a lot of the same weaknesses, obviously. If you can run away from Ganon, which pretty much everyone in the game can, like you said, valuing speed is almost always the best thing in Smash. Almost always the best thing in fighting games, period. Yeah. And like you said, Little Mac does have that, but great. That's one thing that, yes, that's super good. But everything else is so bad. It's so tough. But like you said, the advanced text, you're kind of spitting right now. The advanced text and stuff that Little Mac does to cover up those weaknesses, sure, maybe I can bump him up to a humble third worst in the game or something. Sure, I can think about it.
He's only going up 1 or 2 spots. I really think that's a good way to put it as well. I feel like the Little Mac players are hiding how bad their character is by how good they play him, but you can't hide how bad Ganon is. He just always looks awful.
I was going to say, at least Little Mac has a representative or one or two. Right. Ganon, it's been a while since we've seen Ganon do well. I think like maybe Major did, or I was going to say... It's tough, though, because Japan does so well with all characters. It's just like add them to the list, right? Exactly, to another one. So anyway, yeah.
All right, the next one that I want to ask you about, and this is the one that I had a problem with every single person on Tweek Talks. This is only the universal bad placement, and that is me, Brawler. I'm curious why he's so low.
Okay. So you think he's low. So on my tier list, I have him in this limbo tier, which I think is super important to my tier list, called On the Line, which means this character spikes one way or the other. Like, they either look super broken and disgusting and amazing, or they look bad. Like, they don't have, to me, this consistency factor. And I think everyone talks about how exceptional me Brawler is, and how I have him above characters such as Falco and Greninja and Captain Falcon and Ken and Lucario and Ice Climbers, like characters I value pretty high. So I have him in a tier slightly above them, because I do think that there is this X factor to the character where a good up B is just like, oh, he's like good Little Mac, almost is how I want to put it, like in a way. And I think recently we saw really good use of the character by J Mafia. Did you watch his set against Cola?
No, I didn't see that one.
J Mafia Cola, great set actually. Well, it kind of sucked because Cola lost. I love Cola, but like, he's like everyone's favorite player, obviously. But J Mafia played brilliantly because he's a Yoshi main with a me Brawler secondary, which I really like because I think me Brawler fights against certain playstyles really well. And Cola, and something I really like about him, he's a very stubborn player who's going to hold forward. He's going to attack you. Me Brawler, I think it was maybe a 40-second or 45-second or 50-second game 2, where he got an early confirm into up B, got an early kill on Roy against Cola, and then he just grabbed him, side beat him, because he double jumped off the ledge. Cola stood there at the ledge, and he side beat him and SD KO'd him. Exactly. So he's a character where I think he has a lot of value, but I haven't seen it quite pay off yet for how much I've heard people talk about this character. And to me, like, I think I talked about this on the tier list too, where it's like, it's more, I don't want to say I do it by the math. I'm like, Hero has won more percentage games than Mega Man, so he's slightly higher. It's like, no, I kind of do it by feel and what I've seen in tournaments and what I've casted, what I've seen over the years, and not just Smash, but other fighting games, and how games flesh out over their meta. I think conceptually, if you told me about me Brawler without telling me he's me Brawler, I'd be like, that's got to be a top tier character, 100%. But the fact that we haven't seen it yet, and I think something about the Miis in general that's a little undervalued by everyone, and we saw it a lot with Sword Fighter recently too, is the fact that they do get many different movesets that they can use in different matchups. And I think we don't talk about that enough because there's not a big enough sample size of me character data out there to really look at. So it's like, oh, before a couple weekends ago, if you didn't pay attention to me sword fighter, as a lot of us didn't, myself included, you would still think, oh, it's tornado, chakram, like all this other stuff. But now, I mean, you look at something like me sword fighter using power thrust, that down special that he has, and shuriken to cover that mid distance, like really interesting. So I think me, not that I think me brawler will get like a lot. I think me sword fighter is benefiting from that more than me brawler at this point. But I think me brawler set is kind of optimized because it's so potent. I mean, it's going to be hard to want to replace some of the moves he has in there. Like diet flip kick is obviously very good. The up B gets the KOs off the top is so good. The multi punch through the neutral B is just ridiculous. Like, and again, to me, it feels like he's strong and has all these strong attributes, especially his offense. But where he kind of falls apart is like he's more conceptual. He's not that fast, right? Like he doesn't move super quick or anything. As far as I know, maybe I'm wrong. Like I don't want to.
I wouldn't say I'd say he's still on the faster side, but he's not like a race car by any means.
Yeah, exactly. Like all this offense, all this power. It's like if it was on a character like Fox or someone who's super quick like that, yeah, it's broken. But with him, it's like, I don't know. I feel like he can't like. Maybe it's his airspeed or something. I don't know. But to me, mentally, and again, I'm not like a numbers guy, and I don't spend a lot of time hanging out with the Mies, to be perfectly honest with you. But it's like, to me, he's polarizing, where it's like, yes, his offenses, yes, his strengths are really good. But aside from that, if you're not hitting those early KOs, if you're not hitting that stuff, he feels kind of gimmicky and kind of tough to land good KOs with, right?
Yeah, I think those are all good points as well. And I'm also someone, I have no idea what his stats are, and I never will because I don't want to look them up. But the way that I view me brawler is you take Fox and you make him a little bit slower, you get rid of some of his frame data, you get rid of potent moves like dash attack and up tilt for combo. Well, up tilt's still a combo, but not as strong. And what you do is you give him a grab. And a grab that sets up into a tech chase on a platform, and I think me brawler is the best tech chase character in the entire game. Like, I don't even think it's close.
Oh, interesting.
Because if he gets the grab on a platform like 60-50%, you are going to die unless you do like the why do SDI, which I don't even know what that is. But even after that, you're still dying at like 90%, which is crazy. And he just has so many ways to set up into the tech chase. He can set up into from up tilt, from falling up air, from down tilt, from just down throw itself. And then you can tech chase down with a nair. If the nair like sour spots them, then you get to confirm into up tilt or down tilt. They're going to die. Or you just tech chase with the grab. And I value that very highly. And another thing that I've been very highly valuing from him is I think his killing actually isn't as bad. And I think Kid may be a believer in this. Specifically his run at King Con. He was doing nair into back air, which I didn't know was a thing, but it definitely is. Mach punch, as you mentioned, is such a ridiculous move, and you put that all together with the character that has flip jump, and it's not as good as flip jump. Me brawler is like he's taking the pieces of every single character and he's putting them together for this diet character, but it's the good parts of every single character, and also you just can't really touch a shield.
It's like a Frankenstein's monster. And I think that's what you said too. I think that's the important part of where we're at in the meta, where it's not necessarily, okay, maybe his specials are optimized, but like you said, what about his normal confirms? What about his aerial confirms? Like you said about Kid, watching his run as well. And I think even Leo tweeted, hey, I got to start playing me brawler. So I know Esam's a big believer too.
Yeah.
So that always gives me pause when it comes to how good a character really. No, I'm just kidding. That's my guy. But yeah, you got to see, I need to see it pay off. And it did with Kid.
Fair.
I think that's like a big thing with a lot of these characters too. Is like with me brawler and in that tier that I have in there, it's like these characters are good for sure, but why would you play them when there's better options on the table? Also kind of comes to mind with them. And I think the only one that is at the front of that tier list is Mega Man. Because I think it's hard to argue against. Like he's very unique and has all this cool stuff, so he's pretty easy to justify. And Sephiroth, because he's Sephiroth, so like that's really cool. But playing him is a tough sell.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I think that's the problem with Ultimate tier lists is like me brawler is broken, but even though I think he's broken, there's still like 30 characters I would probably put above him because the top tiers in this game are so good. But there's one character that I definitely would not put above him, and that's going to be Pichu. You have Pichu really high, and I want to know why.
Yeah, some of that is just like leftover trauma from playing in the early. I think Nature is a great player too. I think that Pichu still has a place in the meta, but he falls into that category. He's very potent. So you could see same Pichu player, let's call him like an 8 out of 10 skill level player with Pichu. Take his results or take the results over an entire year. And it could be anywhere from 129th to top 8. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I value it where it's like, do you want to bet on this guy? Like if I was like a side bet Andy or whatever, like, would you want to side bet on Pichu? It's like, that's scary, but you get the right matchups, then it's good. But I think Pichu too, like the counterplay to Pichu, camping out Pichu is really good, like really valuable. So if you have a character that could do that, pretty much, I don't want to say anyone in the cast can, but if you camp out Pichu, he pays just a little bit every time he has a Thunder Jolt, but on a character that dies at 50, it adds up really quick. Like, in I think it's not really the nerfs. Obviously, the nerfs hurt Pichu a lot, of course. Character's still potent as hell, can still get very early KOs, can edge guard really well. But I think it's more about a shift in the meta too, and the new characters that were introduced that can really just wall him out and really keep him away and make him feel like the pressure is almost always on Pichu, or that's how you should play against the character, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Even if he didn't get nerfed, I think he definitely would have fallen off. And one of the reasons that, like you brought up, is neutral is just so hard for Pichu, because if he doesn't win a neutral interaction, even if nothing happens, he lost that interaction because he's taking the damage. And even if it's only like 20% of stock, that's like 1/4 of your stock. It's a lot of damage that Pichu is taking. And his damage output's crazy. He has some really cheesy ways that he can steal his stock, but so does like every character in Smash Ultimate. I just really undervalue like how light the character is. Now, I'm not trying to tell you Pichu's bad. I would still have him like, if I had to look on your tier list, I'd probably put him like right like below Greninja or something. It's nothing crazy.
Like,
but it's just...
Is he better than Captain Falcon? Like, probably, maybe not at this point, but it's so... And then I just think of clips that I see for, like, Natoru, where it's like, he just 0 to death people. I'm like, if he just did that a whole tournament, he would never lose a stock, you know? It's just
what about Stomp Knee?
Yeah. Well, then you need to, like, and of course, every tier list, like, I'm not as educated with, you know, even the Miis or Pichu than, like, a main of those characters, so I can't really sit here and be like, well, their matchup spread is super good or bad. And there's too many characters in this game to really do that. Well, I mean, if you had a couple hours, I suppose you could, or you had a couple days to compile all the data, but then people don't even agree on matchups for their own characters. You know, one Ryu main might say X matchup is winning, the other one say, no, it's hard losing, actually. You can't, maybe it's stage dependent, maybe it's rule dependent. There are just so many variables into figuring it out. And that's why I like to go with tier lists off of what I've seen, what I've experienced too playing the game, and just what I think overall. Like, it's kind of a gut thing, and then I adjust it as it goes. And I kind of compare the characters in the tier. Like, and I think I said it in the episode where it's like, would they sit together, right? Like, does Pichu sit at the same table as Incineroar? I don't think they sit at the same table, honestly. Like, does Pichu sit at the same table as Ken? No, I think Pichu's like a tier. Like, it's just hard to say. But I think Falcon kind of fits in with those guys. I don't know. It's weird the way I kind of look at it.
It's really true. And I make tier the same way. I've not looked at a matchup chart unless I'm like saying this character wins this matchup for video. It's the only time I will ever do it. And actually, speaking of Incineroar, really quickly, he's low. You have Incineroar Lucario.
Is he? I mean, SkyJ has not had a great 2024 is all I'll say about it. He's not had a good... I love that guy. Again, talk about someone that changed the opinion on a character 1,000%. I hope he has a turnaround to his first quarter of the year here, but I think sometimes what we see in Ultimate is characters are hiding how good they are, and then it takes one really good rep of the character to make them explode and be onto the scene, and then everyone kind of shifts and counterplays and learns how to play against them. I think that happened early with Incineroar, so then everyone's like, he sucks, never mind, and then SkyJ emerged and showed everyone how good the character really can be, but now everyone's figuring out, I need to pay attention not only to the character Incineroar, but to SkyJ specifically and figure out how to play against him. And I think we see that a lot. I mean, even things like Game & Watch has changed a lot in that way, even though he's a top tier, where this guy Mia, you know, hey, everyone's preparing. Meister exists. He's an incredible top tier player. Plays Game & Watch, who's a really good character. But then they figured out how to kind of play against Game & Watch or play against the early or mid meta Game & Watch. But then Mia brought a whole nother game to the table. And now everyone needs to figure that out. And we're seeing, again, a dip in consistency and results in a player that's, you know, really good.
Yeah,
I think it can happen to all characters.
The counterplay has been getting like very, very good versus pretty much every single character in the current state of the game. And I will say, I like that you had Bowser above Incineroar, because I still think Bowser's the best heavy. That character is, well, he's not like broken, but he's really good. And then
just hate Bowser, and there's no way I could let that slide.
Nair back air kills at 40. Good life. And you get 40 from the Flame Breath.
Yep. The thing that kills me with Bowser is his forward air hits above and behind him, and below and behind him. I call it an E air and everywhere. It hits everywhere. I hate Bowser, forward air.
And that move is so good. And side B, I love that. We'll talk about him later. Now I want to move on to where it really matters. I don't think I missed anything. The S tier. These are the important characters of the game. And really quickly before we get into the big debate, I want to highlight a couple placements that I thought were really good by you. And they're all 5 next to each other. We don't got to talk about it well, but Pikachu, Samus, Bayo, Kazuya, Corrin. You rated all those characters very well. I would have Pika and Bayo higher, but I'm kind of crazy about those characters. but I feel like you're very good with those takes. And I want to hear a little more about the Corrin take. You talked about it a little bit on the Tweek Talks
Yeah.
podcast, but I just can't get enough of that character. She's broken.
I was gonna say I'm so happy I put Corrin so high. Actually, this is before this is before Genesis. Yeah, it was right.
Yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was the end of last year. I'm pretty sure. Keep me honest on that, but it was definitely before Shattuck won a major.
Yeah.
So I'm happy I have Corrin so high. And to me, it's funny you say those characters because I did put them together almost instantly. Because I think Kazuya, he has this really big X factor, obviously, of just being able, like the offense from Kazuya Advantage State is just so ridiculous. Riddles, the way he recovers with the character is shown like he's not that weak off stage. Like he is, but he's not, right? Like there's ways to counterplay him, but there's more mix than we initially thought. And they're so explosive and so potent in so many ways. And with Corrin, it's just this, not necessarily in a way like Bayo and Kazuya, though they explode and or make their opponent explode and just are so crazy. Corrin is just fundamentally so sound and so good. And you got to give Shattuck a lot of, and Nao too, and all the other Corrins out there putting in a lot of work with the character and really developing a really good meta around Corrin. This placement, honestly, she might go up a little bit, but I still like the place that I have Corrin on the tier list. So what I'd say is she's just super solid. Up air is obviously broken. Down tilt is so good. The ledge trapping, like forward air confirms. We talked about it on Tweek Talks a little bit, but forward air confirms, especially at the ledge, like it's free pressure. It's free real estate. Like you go ahead and throw that move out. If it confirms, great. You get either a back air or another forward air, depending if you want damage or the knockback. Corrin kind of just has everything, just a little bit of everything. But don't be surprised if the character falls off a little bit. We talked about how that happened even with some of the Game & Watch that everyone's now putting in top 5, top 10-ish, or even higher in some cases on my tier list. Like we could see counterplay work, but with Smash, I said it earlier, like speed is an incredible thing in Smash, always has been, always will be. So are swords. And I think Corrin is one of the best swords in the game.
Yeah.
I will jump back into, I know we talked about this on Tweek Talks, but Riddle saying that Aegis is worse than Corrin is crazy to me, but I kind of like the discourse that he's throwing out there.
Me too, but it's
just think about it, right? Like I like the idea of just think about it, man. Like just think about it, like a little bit, and it's like you want to initially like react and say no way, like this character's so broken because it's true. They're both super broken, so I appreciate it. Where I still fully disagree, I definitely appreciate what Riddles and some other players are saying.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best things about Corrin is, like, I think you put in a great point of the counterplay is definitely going to get better versus that character because people just aren't very good versus Corrin right now. But one of the great things about Corrin is you don't know what she's going to do. Like, take Cloud, for example. If Cloud back airs you, he's going to do pretty much the same thing every single time. Corrin hits a forward air, I don't know what the hell's going on. She could do so many things. She has so many revenues. Kind of like Diddy Kong. Like, that's why I think Diddy Kong is so good, because you can be so creative with the character. But if you gave Diddy Kong a sword and the best frame trapping in the game, and then Corrin players started getting good at using pin this year, like, that was one of my biggest complaints about Corrin players, is like, you have this insane disjoint in the air that kills people at 80%, and you're not calling people out. And then Shattuck and they were like, okay, we'll do that. And then they started top 8 mage. Like, such a good character. She's going to get better, especially as people, Corrin players specifically, learn how to shield poke with pin, because they're just starting to do that. She's got a lot of places to go.
The other piece I'd say is that footstool out of shield really helped out a lot as well for Corrin. And again, it's a part of that's how metas work, is they do the work and they do the research and then they bring their character up, and now it's everyone else's job to like kind of beat them back down and see if it's possible. Who knows? Maybe, you need all the information before you can really come to a consensus on how to play a matchup or what's right or what's wrong, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, characters that benefit from footstool to shield, I think we're going to continue seeing success. Like Bayonetta has been doing great. Steve, it was broken before, but he's footstool to shield's ridiculous. And the final character that I want to talk to you about also has quite a good footstool out of shield in Sheik. Now, I want to get this clear. Sheik, very good character. I would still have her in like your S tier. I'd put her probably right below like Pac-Man or something. But I'm curious why she's like up there in that top 10.
I just think, like, in terms of seeing her potential, because you could argue, based on the criteria I've done for my tier list, you could argue that she's in the on the line category, right? With me Brawler and with Pichu, because it's like she spikes some results. She feels really difficult to play and to control, and to get these results with consistently, it's really tough, right? Or she gets cheesed a lot because she doesn't get early KOs. Sheik, when played optimally, I think of Charles all the time when we talk about timeout zero suit, quote unquote. That's the best way to play zero suit. If you play timeout zero suit, she becomes like a top 5 character or whatever ridiculous as Charles says. But I think with Sheik too, in terms of camping, and I think we see so much of it, it's so close to coming all together with Webb as well, one of my favorite players. is, oh man, he's like, think of the set that Webb had against Alcola and how
like
many
1 or 2 things
amazing things. Yeah, exactly. Like, so to me, that showed like the ceiling of the character, and I really do value that. And I do think where Sheik is different than those characters like Pichu and Brawler is her neutral is so consistent. There are very, very, very few characters in the game that out neutral Sheik, and then when she gets an opening, not only is she taking you across the stage and dealing, I know her damage output isn't like huge. Sometimes it depends on which hit she gets because her combo game is also ridiculous sometimes. But she's just doing her standard fares across the stage. Not only is she doing that and getting good damage, but think of the positioning she gets. Now you're getting ledge trapped by Sheik, which is really hard to get out of the corner against. She's got grenade to force you off the ledge. I just view her as like a complete package character, and the reason she isn't higher is because we don't have like a 1% player playing her. Like if Spargo played Sheik or something, right? Like really mained and committed. And a part of that is because she's really hard. You know, like she's really, really hard. We have great reps of the character, but we don't have that Sonics. So like, dude, like if Sonics didn't play Sonic, would we be talking about him in this way? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like if it affects, because he's one of the players in the world that has one of the best punish games or one of the best advantage states, period, regardless of the character he's playing. But he is playing Sonic, obviously. And again, Air. All right, whenever you're ready.
All right, we're back. I crashed, and it was in the middle of a lovely conversation. Hopefully you guys get to see that footage. If not, you missed out. But you were talking about Sheik and her ledge trapping off stage, or not her frame trapping off stage, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about how good it is with someone like Corrin, right? Having this ability to frame trap. Corrin, obviously, it's more about vertical and covering them on their way down. Her covering the vertical and then trying to land, obviously, coming down. And with Sheik, it's like off stage, there's so many frame traps. She covers high, and then she's able to throw needles low, and then obviously bouncing fish, fair, push characters off stage. And something I was saying, and stop me if I said this, you got it in the recording, but I know that this doesn't mean a ton, but her matchup spread I think is phenomenal in terms of beating. Like, what characters does Sheik really, really, really struggle with? And it's not a ton of the characters in the top tier, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that it comes down to like Ice Climbers, like these weird kind of niche matchups that she has a hard time with. But I think that just is a really good sign to me how good a character can be. I mean, even look at the characters in her own tier that would hate playing against her, right? Like there are a lot of characters that would fear her just because she has such a well-rounded kit where obviously she can go in, get these crazy combos. I also, the she can't kill thing, I'm so over that because I've seen drag down, I've seen teardrop confirms into up smash kill at like 80. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just no way, man. Like I'm so over that. So
like
in terms
Bayo
of she can't kill, it happens sometimes.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, but it can happen to any character. I've seen people live Steve up until 160, 170, right? You know, like it just happens, but it's rare. It's rarer with some characters. I was talking about Sonics. I don't know if you got any of that.
I think it should be in there. Again, I don't really know what I have in footage, but if I think we have, then they talk about Sonic. But basically what we were saying is you push a certain character so far that we can see the full strengths of the character. I think another really good example of that is Mia. Because before, we all knew Game & Watch was good, but then we saw, like, I'm going to call Mia perfect Game & Watch. He plays that character correctly. He picks the correct decision pretty much every single time. And because of that, his advantage state is the best in the game. You can't get off the ledge versus him. It just seems impossible. And I think if you do that with Sheik, that placement is very reasonable. My big problems with Sheik are going to be she loses pretty much every single trade. She's not a very good trade character. And because of that, I feel it's very easy to swing versus Sheik, even though she's such a good whip punish character.
I'd say her neutral is so broken, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like, I don't know how. I don't know.
Like, you gotta give her points for neutral, points for disadvantage, points for needles, 2 points for needles actually. But when it comes to that scrappy situation, I think Sheik doesn't do very well versus pretty much every single relevant top tier in the game. Now, hopefully you're not going to run into a scrappy situation too often, but again, it's not robots, it's humans playing, and a lot of the time it's getting dicey, and in those moments, I don't think Sheik does very well.
Yeah, I think that's a reason why I have her in that S tier, but not on the top 5 category. You know what I'm saying? I don't think anyone would call Sheik. Well, maybe some people would call Sheik top 5, but I don't think so. I think it's just, and I think that is a huge part of it, is that you do have to account for human error. Like, she is broken if you hit every single confirm. Like, yes, and if you play neutral in this way, Sheik has the speed, has the punish, she has everything you would basically want in a character. But again, that human error just plays such a big factor, man. It's such a big thing.
Yeah, it's really big. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think Sheik is that high, but I understand Sheik is such a broken character that they're really, she's like Shulk, for example. Like Shulk and Sheik and Kazuya, you can honestly put them wherever you want in a tier list, and I'm like, I could see it.
Yeah, right?
I know what you're cooking there. And yeah, overall,
exactly.
I think you kind of cooked on this tier list. Everyone on Tweek Talk did, like I said at the start. And the last character I want to touch on really quickly is Joker. You're still a Joker believer. I think he's good too. I think he's top 10, but top 5 is pretty high.
I do, yeah. I think he's way up there. I just think, again, overall, like he's such a well-rounded character. He's really, really strong. I think edge guarding is crazy. I think his counter is stupid. I think we've seen so many like sparks of brilliance from Leo where he's really coming back. And there are these times where it's like, damn, Leo lost that set against Spargo, but that game 3 went stupid. You know, like that went crazy. He looked unstoppable. It's like, yes, again, if he could do that consistently every single game, then we'd be back in there. And I think a big part of it is that he switched off Joker. And again, Joker falls in that cheat category. I think people compare them a lot too, where it's like the skill ceiling is super high. So yes, obviously, if they were really easy to play and really easy to hit all of their technical stuff with, hitting the drag downs, hitting all these confirms, because even sometimes Leo messes up the teardrop confirms with Leo, or messes up like the drag down up airs into down smash. Like he just misses it because sometimes it's hard, man. Playing the game in tournament is very different than just saying, okay, TaskBot, like run the simulation, like which character is the best, right? It's very, very different, which is why I still have him very high up there. But and I think most people do too. I don't think having him in top 5 is like too crazy. I think the one that people might sub in there is
making me mad.
What's that? I don't have him in top 10.
No,
That's
like everyone's been dropping out of top 10. I'm like, what are we? This guy has gun and everything else about his kit. Like if you took Tsubaki's gun usage and MK Leo's everything else, he's the GOAT.
Absolutely. I agree. I think gun is still an undervalued tool, even though we talk about it all the time. And I think we talked about this character too, real quick, is Samus. I'm glad you really like my Samus placement. I think that character, it's just so good. Like it almost reminds me of Game & Watch in a lot of ways. Like a really good get off me option, and with screw attack, the easy bake ledge trapping, like a way to win neutral. Samus has a way to win neutral from full screen. Like charge shot is just so good. And I'm just naming special moves right now. Yes, it's crazy. It's so good. And you can the confirms too. Like, I don't know. I think Samus is so like almost a complete character. But then she just has these kind of dog shit matchups. And it's like, dang, okay, well, guess all right, let's chill a little bit on Samus. That's why I didn't put her higher. But that's one of the highest Samus placements I think I've ever seen. So yeah, I'm happy about that.
The only thing really keeping her down for me would be the matchup spread. But again, I don't care about matchup spread. Charge shot's broken. And you have moves like back air, dash attack. If you clip someone with up tilt at 70, they die. Like, very, very good. And I think she's going to keep getting better. She's also one of the most represented characters at the top level. Like, what? Yaura, Siski, Icy Mist. Those are just the 3 off the top of my head. There's so many good sounds.
Yeah, we were talking about Collision coming up this weekend, and Icy Mist is going to be there. I feel like it's been quiet on the Samus front recently, but I did say on the show too, on Tweek Talks, I think Icy Mist should have a good tournament here. I think so, and I hope so. So we'll see. She's projected
to play Shattuck, and she's 3-0 on Shattuck, so that is going to be fun.
It's a huge W now. I mean, it's always been a huge W, but now it's like, mathematically it's a huge W.
Now. It's like a top 10 win. All right,
see what you can do.
That's all the characters I had to talk to you about today. Hopefully, the recording got most of them. If not, well, it was just a good conversation between you and me. Thank you so much for joining me today. You got anything you want to plug?
Well, you run it back. No, I'm going to plug you, bro. Proof Block. Subscribe, like, do all that stuff. Comment below. I check this guy's stuff out before pretty much every tournament. I like watching his tournament breakdowns. I don't always agree with you, but that's part of the fun. I'm like, I don't know if that's true, actually. I don't know about that matchup or whatever. But that's part of the fun of it. So definitely subscribe and do all that stuff from my man Proof right here. So
I appreciate that. Thanks so much. Huge shout outs to Hazmatt for joining me. His link, as well as everyone else on the Tweek Talk crew, will be down below. Super fun to talk to, but even though he was fun to talk to, that doesn't mean that he's got the best tier list, because the #1 tier list from the Tweek Talks crew is going to be going to Pink Fresh. And immediately right away, you're going to see something that most people probably aren't going to agree with, and that's Sora in top 5. And I also don't agree that Sora should be in top 5, but I like the narrative that this is pushing, because Sora is a very good character, and people are just kind of bad with him. He's got a really solid neutral. He's got such a good damage output, some of the best damage output in the entire game. He's got kill confirms out of the wazoo. He's got a really good out of shield game, and he can stall off stage for so long. When Sora players start camping you onto the stage, that's when this character is going to rise to prominence. So even though Sora is definitely not top 5 right now, probably not top 5 ever, I really like this placement. And even though Pink Fresh kind of cooked with this list, that doesn't mean I agree with him on everything. And my first complaint is going to be down in the Click Me tier. These characters aren't even good enough to deserve labels. And for some of them, that's definitely true. But for a couple of them, absolutely not. And the first one is going to be Ness. Just kidding. Editing Proof Block here. And I talked about both Ness and Younglink in this segment, but I already talked about them earlier on in the video, so I'm going to spare you the time. But basically, what I said earlier, I just think they're a little too low. And the only character that I thought was too high on Pink Fresh's tier list, aside from the one with a good narrative, is going to be Marth. And if you've watched the channel before, you all know I'm not a big Marth believer. I believe this character's inconsistencies are just too much. I think he gets held back by them. But Pink Fresh did bring up a couple points that low-key maybe kind of see the light. And the first one I thought was really important is sour spot confirms into sweet spot confirms. And that's a great point. Lucina simply does not have access to those, and Marth has a lot of those. Kind of like Roy, for example, you have so many ways where you can kind of change your combo game based off what part of the sword you're actually hitting with, but it doesn't really fix my problem that I have with Marth, which is going to be his consistency issues. You have to be so precise with this character at all times, and when you're getting deep in a tournament, when you're in a scramble situation, things are really intense. It can be super difficult to get that max space move, especially when your opponent is literally running at you. You look at a character like Corrin, for example. Corrin, you can max space up air. It's broken, ridiculous, but you could also go up close with up air. And Marth, especially when it comes to the kill percent, can't really do that. He has to taper because a lot of his kill confirms once you get to a too high percent, which will happen a lot versus Marth, kind of stop working, and by that I mean the sour spot into sweet spot confirms. And again, I'm kind of starting to see the light with Marth, and I do think that 2024 will be the best year he's had so far because he's absolutely a late game character, but is he better than characters like Mario, Roy, Samus, Pac-Man, Palutena, pretty much all these characters in the B tier? I definitely wouldn't say so. And that's where my problems with Pinkfresh's tier list kind of end, so I'm going to use this time to talk about characters that were too high or too low on every single one of the tier lists. There's a couple characters that I specifically avoided because they were just, on average, much higher, much lower than I would expect, and the first one is going to be Lucario. Now, editing proof block here. Once again, this is another character that I've already talked about when I was touching on Tweek's tier list, and I do think he's still a little bit high on a majority of the tier list that we talked about in today's video, but I'm starting to see where the narrative is coming from. Frame data is really good. Aura is a super strong mechanic, and even without Aura, you still have some solid kilograms. You're going to need at least like 50-60%, but that is a realistic percent to get to where you can start getting the kill. Obviously, it's going to be a struggle, but I'm alright with this Lucario play. Another character that I thought was surprisingly low was Ken, and I honestly don't know how to feel about this one because Ken still has a lot of very good things about him. He still has up B, which is a ridiculous move, even though it can be a little bit inconsistent. When it hits, you're dying at like 80%. He's got some of the best shield pressure, if not the best shield pressure in the entire game. I'd have to think about it, but he pops shields like it is nothing. Character super quick. He's got some good moves in the air, and I think he's not this bad, but I do think that Ken is going to continually getting worse as Ryu continually gets better. I think Ryu is just significantly better than Ken at this point. The Fireball, the side B, the consistencies, overall, Ryu is just a better character. And it might be a bit of an Echo syndrome where one character is a lot better than the other Echo, so they get worse. That's how Marthosina kind of works for me. So maybe that's what it is. I don't think Ken should be this low, but I like that he's low. A character that was way too low on everyone's tier list, aside from Charles, good job Charles, was B Brawler, but I talked about that with Hazmatt, so I'm not going to talk about it here. And I've got 3 more characters that I want to mention because I just think everyone did a very good job at placing those characters. The first one is going to be Hero. Hero is a sleeper top tier character. He has some ridiculous normals, and his specials are honestly some of the best in the game. Fireball is really good. Side B is a broken move, and down B is one of the best moves in the entire game because of what you get access to. The buffs are ridiculous. The slashes are ridiculous. You have some of the best projectiles in there. It's overall just very good, and the only real bad thing about Hero is he can get rushed down super hard. But aside from that, I just think this character is extremely good. Half the time you get to mitigate the ledge trapping phase because you just get access to zoom. And sure, your opponent has a chance to snipe you out of the sky, but how often is that actually happening? I think Hero is going to continue rising on the tier list as Hero players just get faster at reading the menu. Another one is going to be Pikachu. Now, he's not quite as high as I would like on any of these tier lists, but I like that they're at least respecting this character. They're acknowledging that Pikachu is broken. Maybe not in the top 5, but you know what? Top 15, it's reasonable. And the final character that I want to highlight is going to be Corrin. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time just because me and Hazmatt did talk about her, but everyone rated her very highly, and I appreciate that because the character is ridiculous, and people are only going to get better at using Corrin. I still think she's in kind of the infancy stages of the character's development. People are going to get way better at using Pin. Her combo routes are going to get better. Now, the counterplay is also going to get better, but I think it's going to be to the point where Corrin is either out-racing the counterplay or they're just going even so the character doesn't have a significant fall-off. Nao and Shattuck have been farming this year, so thank you for proving me and everyone on the Tweek Talks crew right. I really appreciate that. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Sport's been absolutely unreal as of late. And as I said at the start of the video, I think all of these tier lists were super well done. Even if there's a couple critical placements that I don't agree with pretty much every single tier list, for the most part, they were quite exceptional. And I'm curious what y'all think. Leave a comment down below and be sure to sub while you're down there. And that's all I got to say. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.